anak-anak kita memahami dunia sekitar kita. Lalu bagaimana masa depan pendidikan? Banyak lingkungan belajar saat ini dirancang selama revolusi industri. Atau hidup lebih dapat diprediksi saat itu. Dan tujuan sekolah adalah untuk mempersiapkan anak-anak untuk hidup sebagai pekerja pabrik. Nah, itu adalah realita pendidikan yang disiapkan pada era revolusi industri. Masyarakat yang dilayani oleh sistem pendidikan industri terlihat sangat berbeda dengan masyarakat saat ini. Oleh karena itu, kita harus mempertimbangkan bagaimana kita dapat mengubah sistem pendidikan kita untuk lebih memenuhi kebutuhan masyarakat global abad ke-21. Lalu lanjut pada pertengahan abad ke-20, era industri digantikan oleh era informasi. Internet telah memainkan peran kunci dalam memperluas sejumlah informasi dan pengetahuan baru yang dihasilkan setiap hari. Kaum muda masa kini harus belajar bagaimana mengakses, menafsirkan, menganalisis, dan mengevaluasi sejumlah besar informasi untuk memahami dunia tempat mereka tinggal. Selain ledakan informasi, dunia kita saat ini menghadapi banyak tantangan besar seperti perubahan iklim, kekurangan pangan, energi, dan air, dan ketegangan etnis di banyak bagian dunia. Dunia yang terus berubah ini menuntut anak-anak kita untuk memecahkan masalah yang kompleks. Tetapi jawaban atas masalah ini tidak dapat ditemukan di buku teks. Oleh karena itu, kita perlu memastikan bahwa generasi muda kita menjadi pembelajar seumur hidup yang tangguh dengan kemampuan untuk beradaptasi di dunia yang dinamis dan bergerak cepat. Kita perlu mengalihkan fokus pembelajaran kita dari sekedar menghafal informasi menjadi berkolaborasi untuk memecahkan masalah dunia nyata. Penggerak lain untuk transformasi pendidik adalah dunia kerja. Teknologi mengurangi kebutuhan akan tenaga kerja manual dan rutin, yang menyebabkan meningkatnya pengangguran di banyak sektor. Perusahaan saat ini mengharapkan kaum muda untuk memiliki berbagai keterampilan, termasuk diantaranya adalah berbagi kritis, komunikasi yang terampil, pemecahan masalah yang kreatif, keterampilan interpersonal yang kuat. Juga generasi muda saat ini juga harus memecahkan masalah kompleks, multidisiplin, dan terbuka untuk menumbuhkan pembelajaran aktif dan berkelanjutan sepanjang karir mereka. Untuk mempersiapkan peserta didik kita berkembang di dunia yang semakin kompleks ini, sekolah harus membayangkan kembali lingkungan belajar. Sistem sekolah kita perlu beralih dari model individualis ke model inquiry kolaboratif. Pendidik juga harus merancang kegiatan pembelajaran yang mengembangkan keterampilan abad ke-21 yang vital sambil mengajar peserta didik untuk dapat menggunakan alat digital yang telah menjadi syarat untuk sukses di semua bidang kehidupan. Sekarang mungkin kita lihat dulu nih, apa aja sih yang udah ada di OneNote-nya. Tunggu sebentar. Oke, ada sedikit problem untuk bukanya, jadi mungkin nanti akan kita bahas. Nah, mungkin sebelum itu kita cek ini dulu. Video ini dulu, Bapak Ibu.
Hi, I'm David Squires, sits for the Mars CISD, coming at you from the iCafe studio. With all of the drivers of technology coming out in the classroom, Hi, I'm David Squires, sits for the Mars CISD, coming at you from the iCafe studio. With all of the drivers of technology coming out in the classroom today, we want to take a moment and bring you up to speed a little bit on some of the more specific research-based ideas happening around us in the profession and give you some more information to have an intelligent and thoughtful conversation on specifically 21st century skills. We've seen a lot of drivers pop up. We've talked about learning beyond the classroom, new dynamic content, personalizing instruction for students. And 21st century skills is the buzzword now in the profession and gaining a lot of steam. So we're going to help you have that conversation and benefit students to the full capabilities. We want to give you, again, some more of that information. So what we're going to introduce to you today is the Innovative Teaching and Learning Research, which is done on a global scale. It's sponsored by Microsoft's Partners in Learning Network. It's been conducted on a worldwide basis and facilitated by the Stanford Research Institute. They started out the research initially in 7 countries that you see here, and over time have expanded it greatly to a significant number of countries. Pay particular attention to the fact that in the initial 7, the United States is not listed. And really, the reason they ignored the United States for the first run of this research is to really figure out what is innovative teaching and learning across the globe so we can better understand our own practices here in the U.S. And what they found is they focused on a set of skills for tomorrow's workforce that we're trying to instill in students. But to be honest with you, I don't like the idea that they're calling it skills for tomorrow's workforce because it's not tomorrow's workforce. We have students graduating today, so that makes them skills for today's workforce. There are 6 learning dimensions that they've identified as the key drivers towards 21st century skills. Some of them you may know, a couple of them I bet will surprise you. The first one that I always hear anytime I talk with people about this is collaboration. Everybody knows collaboration is putting people in groups, but actually that's not the whole idea of collaboration. Collaboration through the research takes on a whole different level of inclusion and difficulty when we're looking at putting students in groups to accomplish specific tasks, and not only that, but framing the work that they do so that their work is truly interdependent, where if you remove one of those students from the group, they would almost likely or almost certainly fail at the task. It's about structuring that so that the students are communicating and working on a common goal, but that they really have to be in that group. They couldn't accomplish the same thing as easily or as well without the entire group. The second learning dimension that we're focused on is the real-world problem solving and innovation. Now, there's a few key factors here when you look at the title that's presented here. First of all, it's real world. For our purposes, though our students do live in the real world, what we're talking about is beyond the classroom, getting outside of past graduation, getting into a workforce, things like that. Problem solving is pretty self-explanatory, although the caveat here in the research is the problem doesn't have to be what we think of as a problem with a solution. A problem here could be a process that students walk through and have to figure out, perhaps like a design. If I'm designing a cabinet, I have to figure out how do I get from this pile of wood here to the finished cabinet that I want, and designing that process and all the factors involved with that. And then finally, the last piece of this one is innovation. Now, for the research, it's a little bit different from what you and I would think off the top of our heads as innovation. Innovation here is our students taking a real world problem, their solution to it, and actually attempting to implement it in the real world. Are they taking their solution and applying it to the world around them? Which makes it a little bit different than what we would think, but that's the step we are often missing when we talk about real world problem solving. We forget to ask them to implement a solution outside of just the theory, but put their solution into practice. The third learning dimension that we're going to look at is knowledge construction. This is easily thought about when you look at Bloom's taxonomy and think back on that process. Knowledge construction is getting ourselves beyond the low level of Bloom's, which is the memorize and recall lower levels, getting them into the higher levels of Bloom's, talking about analyzing, synthesizing, creating, and things like that, compare, contrast. Taking their knowledge, not just getting it and sharing it back out, but what do I do with it as a student once I have it? And again, taking that beyond just the classroom and the theory, putting some ideas into practice. The fourth learning dimension is skilled communication. This is the most recent addition to their research as they've expanded it across the globe. Skilled communication is about asking students to not only take knowledge, but communicate it in a thoughtful way. And one of the ways that we ask students to do that is to actually take their knowledge and share it with a group in a different format than they may be comfortable with, and with a different group than they're used to communicating with. So for example, asking students to present some information in a health class about why they shouldn't smoke, sharing that with their peers and their teacher is great, but asking them, if they're a group of middle school students, to share it with elementary students, or asking them as students to share it with college students, changes the way that they have to communicate to those audiences, reframes their thinking, and reframes the way that knowledge they've actually acquired. The fifth learning dimension is self-regulation, and this one's pretty self-explanatory. It's just about budgeting your time, basic project management. A couple of things on this one is that we have to consider the length of which we're asking them to regulate their own time. The research is showing in a secondary setting, usually about 2 weeks, if you have it, is ideal for the self-regulation. In an elementary room, that may look differently because we have you changing subjects multiple times in one classroom. You know, for you, one full day may be an extended period of time for most of our elementary students, depending on their grade level. Another piece about self-regulation is that what we're asking them to do is determine their own path for the work. Are they getting an assignment and then on their own or with their group, breaking down that large task into small chunks to accomplish it along the way? Are they setting their own deadlines? Are they also creating their own benchmarks for establishing, did I create success or was I unsuccessful at this task? All of those fit under the self-regulation. And finally, one that we're very focused on here in Lamar CISD is the use of ICT for learning. If you're not familiar with ICT, what that stands for is Information and Communications Technology. It's what we refer to in the district very simply as technology. If it has a power switch, if you can turn it on and off, it's basically ICT. So for this, ICT for Learning asks us to not look at, am I using technology in my lesson, but it asks you to look at it in a totally different light. Are your students using technology in the lesson? Are they using the technology because it's fun and trendy, or are they using it because it's required to enhance their knowledge construction? And again, that goes back to the previous dimension where we're asking them to get beyond accessing information, but doing something with it. And then finally, it asks us, are our students then designing a product that will outlast the life of that project and actually extend beyond the classroom? Are they creating a wiki that other people could access and use in the future? Are they creating a PowerPoint presentation and doing narration over top of it to share their knowledge in more of an audio format as well as visual that, again, can outlast them? So there's a lot of information here, and what we've done today is just scratch the surface of these 6 learning dimensions. There's plenty more information that we can cover with you. We're excited about rolling this out to you and giving you a little bit more of information that you can use for your discussions on your campuses and throughout the profession. Again, I'm David Squires, the CITS here in Lamar, coming at you from the iCafe studio.
Kita lanjutkan. Nah, tadi di sini kita lihat dalam video tadi pun dijelaskan bahwa 6 keterampilan itu adalah bisa sukses di dalam abad ke-21. Jadi 6 keterampilan itu Jadi 6 keterampilan ini ya yang ada dalam rubrik Microsoft Certified Educator di 21st Century Learning Design, yaitu 6 keterampilan ini atau 6 dimensi ini: kolaborasi, komunikasi terampil, konstruksi pengetahuan, regulasi diri, pemecahan masalah dan inovasi dunia nyata. Penggunaan TIK untuk pembelajaran adalah sesuatu yang penting untuk mendukung pembelajaran dan juga untuk mendukung kesuksesan karir dari siswa-siswa kita. Nah, dalam buku Dancing with Robots, Human Scale for Computerized World, Fang Levy dan Richard Morney menjelaskan cara teknologi mengubah pasar tenaga kerja dan keterampilan yang dibutuhkan kaum muda untuk berhasil di abad 21. Mereka meminta kita untuk mempertimbangkan bagaimana tempat kerja berubah di abad ke-21. Apa kemampuan utama yang dicari pengusaha dalam angkatan kerja saat ini? Untuk memenuhi tantangan dunia yang kompleks dan terhubung, lingkungan pembelajaran abad ke-21 harus didominasi berbasis inquiry. Dalam lingkungan berbasis inquiry, peserta didik secara aktif terlibat dalam proses pembelajaran seperti memutuskan bagaimana mereka akan menghabiskan waktu mereka di kelas. Dalam jenis lingkungan ini, peserta didik mengambil kepemilikan atas pendidikan mereka dan menjadi pengambil keputusan mandiri dalam kemampuan untuk mengelola prioritas baik dalam maupun di luar sekolah. Membiarkan kaum muda kita memiliki pendidikan mereka memupuk semangat untuk keunggulan akademik dan kebiasaan mereka belajar sepanjang hayat. Nah, untuk mendukung peserta didik, maka pendidik harus menciptakan lingkungan yang memadu dan mendukung pembelajaran mandiri, membina hubungan yang efektif, mendukung instruksi yang berbeda. Nah, kita bisa lihat dalam paradigma baru ini, pendidik harus merangkul perubahan dan fleksibilitas, dan kemudian beralih dari sekedar sumber pengetahuan menjadi konstruktor pengetahuan dengan pendekatan kolaboratif. Mereka harus terlibat dalam pengembangan profesional dengan penelitian berbasis situs dan praktek reflektif, dan mereka harus menerima umpan balik dari peserta didik, orang tua, dan pemangku kepentingan lainnya untuk mengevaluasi dan menganalisis perubahan dari waktu ke waktu. Mengajar di abad ke-21 membutuhkan profesional yang berkomitmen yang terus-menerus memperbaharui pengetahuan dan keterampilan mereka sendiri. Pendidik abad 1 harus menerima bahwa perubahan itu konstan dan terbuka untuk teknologi baru, teori belajar baru, dan juga teknik penilaian baru. Dan kita bisa katakan bahwa singkatnya, pendidik yang memandang diri mereka sebagai pembelajar yang berada di ujung jantung atau berada di jantung pembelajaran abad ke-21. Itu menandakan pentingnya sekali peran dari Bapak Ibu guru. Nah, tentu bagaimana sih yang dikatakan bahwa 21st Century Learning Design ini dikembangkan berdasarkan riset. Nah, kita coba lihat dulu nih, bagaimana sih riset di balik itu.
.21 CLD was developed after Microsoft and other employers realized that some members of their workforce didn't possess the requisite skills to thrive in their chosen occupation. Microsoft commissioned a study through the Stanford Research Institute to examine what skills our learners need to succeed in the workplace and how are we measuring those skills. 21CLD was developed after Microsoft and other employers realized that some members of their workforce didn't possess the requisite skills to thrive in their chosen occupation. Microsoft commissioned a study through the Stanford Research Institute to examine what skills our learners need to succeed in the workplace and how are we measuring those skills in our schools. The researchers studied schools in 7 countries, analyzing lesson plans and learners' work, interviewing learners and educators and administrators to find out what skills are we teaching and how are these skills being taught. What skills do our learners need to be prepared for the workforce? And are we teaching those skills? The research group identified 6 important 21st century skills or learning dimensions: knowledge construction, collaboration, real-world problem solving, skilled communication, self-regulation, and ICT for learning. They discovered that although educators were addressing some of these skills in their learning activities, it was often only at a superficial level. For example, while educators were introducing the skill of collaboration, they were not requiring learners to practice the skill in a way that would ensure their future success. Researchers also asked, what do successful schools have in common? They found that educators in the most successful schools were collaborating with their colleagues to design cross-curricular or interdisciplinary lessons. The research team then developed rubrics to help educators better understand 21CLD curricular goals and redesign learning to develop the vital skills our learners need. These rubrics have been tested internationally and proven to facilitate collegial discussion on lesson design as well as promote reflective practice among educators. So, let's dive in and learn more about the 6 learning dimensions and their rubrics.